someone has not been doing a very good job at getting through her TBR for the summer. So we're here to remediate that a little bit. I feel like summer is basically over at this point. In my brain, summer is done, like I'm ready for fall. But I am a bit sad that I didn't get to experience all the summer books that I had planned for myself. So I want to take a week to binge out as much as I can from my TBR and just see where that leaves us. And then after this week, I want to get full heads on to my fall TBR. Like I'm done with summer. I know it's still August, but summer is over in my mind. Some leaves are already turning some different colors, so I'm like, you know what, you're out, summer, bye. So let's talk about the books that I want to pick up. I want to pick up 3 books. I don't know if it will happen, but we'll try to read 3 books this week. So the first one that I want to get to is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I really love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read Malibu Rising from her, and I've also read Daisy Jones and the Six. That book wrecked me, and I want to pick up more of her stories. I think she's really talented at getting that drama, that juicy drama out of a story and just pouring it into your heart. I think this might be the first one that I'm gonna pick up from this list, and this follows the story of a young woman who is recently married. She's enjoying her time as a new wife, but unfortunately an accident happens to her husband while he is on a work trip, and she essentially gets the call that her husband has disappeared and is probably dead. Following this traumatic event, she decides to move back to her home city, and in there she kind of rekindles a relationship that she had either with an old friend or an old ex, and this person really helps her get through her grief of losing her husband. When things start to go really well with her new relationship, she gets a phone call that her husband is actually found to be alive. So now she has to go through this very difficult decision of which one do we pick? That sounds like it's gonna be a very sad story, and I'm going to be left with a lot of thoughts and tears after this book. I don't think I picked up any romances this summer yet, so I'm excited to give this one a shot. Next, this is a book that I hadn't planned on reading at the beginning of the summer. It's a book that I recently purchased, and it just gives me summer vibes and I really want to get to it. And this is Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel. This is a piece of Mexican literature, and it follows a young woman who, what she wants to do with her life is basically just find true love and spend time with the man that she's in love with. But her mom is pretty strict and does not allow her to go outside of specific guidelines and specific traditional rules that she has for her. And so she spends a lot of the time in the kitchen cooking with her mom. And the book has a very interesting structure where each chapter will denote a specific month of the year. So I think it goes through the entirety of the year. And then for that specific month, there's a recipe that is presented and the preparation of that recipe. And then the plot of the story goes from there. It's a really interesting structure. I also think that there's a bit of magical realism in here. And yeah, I'm just excited to get to it. I heard a lot of very good reviews about this book. I know that it's a book that is highly acclaimed by a lot of people, so I'm really excited to get to it this month. Lastly, we have a little bit of a classic. I have not read any classics this summer yet. I am reading The Brothers Karamazov, but that's for a completely different video, and it's, I'm reading it throughout the whole entirety of the summer, but I haven't completed a classic yet this summer. So I want to get to Jean Rhys White Sargasso Sea. So this is a retelling of The Crazy Woman in the Attic from Jane Eyre, whose name I think was Berta. I haven't read Jane Eyre in probably over a decade, so I'm a little bit fuzzy on all the names and all the details, but I heard so many amazing things about this book. I honestly don't know much about it, so I really want to go into it a little bit not knowing what's gonna happen. It's a very short book too, so I'm hoping I'll be able to finish this within this week. So here's our small but mighty stack for this week. Yeah, I'm really excited. I think I might start with One True Loves, and I will keep you updated with what I do throughout the week and any reading updates. Wednesday. The week is going really well. I'm really happy with the progress that I'm making. I finished the first book, which is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was so bingeable. All of her books are just so easy to read, so fast to get through. I just have the best time getting through her stories and her novels. I kind of explained the synopsis of this book last time, and there's really not that much more that I could say about it without giving too many spoilers. What I'll say is that I found the ending to be extremely predictable. I would say like about at the 30% mark of the book, I knew for sure who she was going to pick out of the two men, just in a way that certain things were explained about who she is as a person. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I see exactly where this is going and how this is gonna conclude, and it's exactly what happened. I don't know if the author purposefully left those little nuggets of information for us to be able to kind of get a foreshadowing of what is going to happen at the end, but I just felt like the author went into this book knowing how it's gonna end, and me as the reader felt that, and so I couldn't get into the experience of Emma going through this difficult decision that she has to make between choosing either her husband, who she just found out is no longer dead and is alive, or choosing her fiance, her new fiance. Like, I just couldn't get myself in the shoes of Emma, or I couldn't really experience the feelings that she was describing, because I already knew how it's gonna end, and I already saw like how she was starting to think about herself and how that would impact her decision at the end. So it just didn't seem very believable to me that she was going through this very conflicted feelings. Because to me, I'm like, well, no, there's no conflicted feelings here at all. Like, this is exactly how you feel. Like, you know how you feel, and this is how you feel. So I don't understand, like, what's the confusion about? And then also towards the end, she had this epiphany moment that literally took 2 seconds. And then that was it. Like, she had a conversation with one of the guys, and they were like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Let's part ways. And then she goes with the other one. So I'm like, but, like, how was that such a fast decision? It was so abrupt. It literally happened within a span of her realizing it was literally a couple of seconds, and then her discussing it with that other person was like maybe an hour or two. It just didn't feel believable for the intensity of the emotions that she was describing prior. Other than that, I loved reading this book. I would recommend this book. If you're not really gonna care about the specifics of how this is believable or not, I think this is a really good book. It's very bingeable. What I enjoyed mostly, aside from the love stories and the main plot in this book, is how the author described adulthood, coming into, you know, being an adult and what that means, and how often there's this full circle moment where you kind of go back to your roots, or you go back to certain things that you thought in your childhood you absolutely hated, or you're like, you know, this is not for me, I don't like this. And then you get to be an adult and you're like, okay, you know what? I think my parents were right. I think there are certain things that I could reconsider now that I'm an adult that, you know, could be useful to my life, or I could enjoy in my life. I really relate to that. I feel like when I was younger, you know, there's a lot of things that a lot of people around me told me that I would like or I wouldn't like, and I was a little rebel. I was like, no, this is what I like. I don't like anything that anybody tells me to do. And then you get to be an adult, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get what you mean. All those things that back then seemed so boring and lame, all of a sudden you get to adulthood and you're like, okay, maybe it's lame, but I don't care, I like it. So I don't want to give too many specifics because I don't want to spoil anything that happens in this book, but anyways, I like that discussion and how it went. I also started the next book, which is Like Water for Chocolate. I'm currently 30 pages through, and I'm planning to read a little bit more of this tonight. I think this is going to be a relatively quick read. It's very short, and I also don't know too much at this point to give you too much of an update because I really just started the book. But essentially we're following Tita, and Tita is the youngest daughter of her family, and what her mom wants from her is basically that she stays with her mom and takes care of her when she becomes older, and so she's not allowed to get married to anybody else because her role as the youngest daughter is to take care of her mom. And Tita is not very happy with that, especially because she is starting to catch some feelings for a certain man in the town, and now she's not allowed to see him or to be with him. So that's kind of where I'm at in the story. And yeah, I'm just excited to continue. I like the story so far. It's very playful, as I said, with the whole theme of cooking, which I really enjoy. and I think it's going to be developed further in the book. And I'll give you a more sizable update when I'm a little bit more through the book. The week is officially over. I finished Like Water for Chocolate and One True Loves. I did not get to the third book this week, but you know what? I'm pretty happy with the fact that I did get to read these two, and I loved both of them very, very much. I think they're perfect summer reads. They're both romances, but they're romances that are done in a bit more of a literary sense. They're not typical contemporary romances as we think about romances, and I really, really enjoyed both of them. So let me just give you a little bit more detail on this because I already talked about this one before. Like Water for Chocolate is a novel that is set in 12 months, and I've said, I think in a previous clip, that it's probably set throughout the year because it's like the 12 months of the year, but in fact it's 12 months across multiple years. So this is a story that ranges decades, and it's really the story of Tita coming to terms with her mom's expectations of her and her trying to, cope with the trauma that her mom brought upon her. And one of the ways in which Tita really kind of lets through her frustration is through food. She spends a lot of the time in the kitchen and she loves to cook. And obviously this is a story that has magical realism. And so the food that Tita is making becomes this sort of venue for all of her emotions to get transported and to get poured into. So whether she's feeling frustrated with her mom, whether she's feeling in love with someone, everything that she feels gets put into the food that she's making. And then the people that consume that food start to internalize those emotions, which is really funny to see in certain situations. So at the beginning of the book, we find out that Tita's sister, Rosaura, is marrying the love of her life, like the guy that Tita fell in love with. And she has to prepare the food for this wedding. And so all of her frustration and anger towards them getting married gets put into the food and everyone gets food poisoning. It's a really fun concept, but as the story goes forward, it becomes more complex, and there are so many different ways that the author plays with this concept of emotions getting transported into food and then internalized into everybody who eats them. I don't want to give other details about the plot because it's a pretty short book, so I don't want to spoil anything that happens, but it's really, really a good book. It's a book about love ultimately, and I really love how this was done. I thought it was so sensual and romantic, and I love this discussion about Tita's relationship with food. This is also set in a difficult political climate in Mexico, so we also get to see the political conflict kind of bubbling up and how, everyday people are dealing with those conflicts and how it affects them in their everyday life, in their ranches, in their economy. I would say, even though it's set across so many different months, I would say it's the perfect summer read just because it's a romance, it's very easy to get through, and although the themes that are explored are quite complex, it's done in such a way that is just magical and mystical and just very, very comforting. So this concludes my week of trying to get through my summer TBR. I'm very happy that I got through both of these books. I really had such a good time reading both of these. I would highly recommend both of these books for anybody that is looking for a summer romance that is a little bit different than the typical contemporary romances that we read. And now that I've gotten through these, I am officially starting my autumn TBR. I've already started a couple days ago listening to my first autumny spooky book, and I'm really excited. Like, summer is over in my mind. Thanks so much for joining me this week. I hope that your summer reading is going really well as well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.